Good morning. And this morning I want to ask a question. And the question's this. Can you run Xbox Series X and S enhanced games from a USB drive in 2022? And the short answer is yes. And no. Because some enhanced games will run from USB drives, but most won't. And the most difficult part is working out which ones will and which ones won't. And, the fact of the matter is there's no official list of enhanced games that run from USB, and that's not surprising. Microsoft want you to buy the Seagate external drives, the 500, 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte drives that you can plug into the back of your Xbox. And so, they don't want to be advertising the fact that some of these games will run from an external USB drive. There are lists, though, that you can look at. And if we go here, let me see, there's a list on Reddit. This list here is interesting. You can go through this, and there are a few games. You've got Ark, Survival Evolved, Desperados, and so on and so forth, all the way down to Zombie Army. But as you can see, it's a small number of games. And there are some notable points to be raised here. Most specifically, if we look at Sea of Thieves actually no longer runs from a USB drive. And so that one's difficult. And I also heard that Star Wars The Fallen Order, some people were saying that did run, and that no longer runs either. So whether it did or didn't, I don't know. I've never tried it. Certainly not from a USB drive anyway. I've played it. But yeah, so some of these games could be running and then they won't run later on. So you need to be, aware of that. However, if a game already is installed to a USB drive and you've got to play it and it no longer works, it'll tell you and it'll prompt you to install it to the internal or one of the Seagate proprietary drives. But given that the lists can't necessarily be relied on, how do you check? To make sure and see that a game will run from USB drive? Well, there are ways of looking at games once they're installed. So this is only applying to games that are already installed on your system. And you can go in and you can look and see if they are games that are able to install on USB. And there are various different types of games. Now, if I go into my games and apps, see all, and now, obviously, the first one I can see here, I've got Crimson Skies. So, bear in mind that all backwards compatible games will work from USB. So, original Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, Xbox One games, and then there are a few like these that are listed, or at least some of the ones that are listed here, that are new games that will also run, and they're called Gen 9 aware games. Now, let's just go into Crimson Skies. If we hit the select button, the one with the three little lines, and we go to Manage Games and Add-ons, and we go to File Info, near the bottom here, we've got console type Xbox Original. So where it says Xbox Original, that's telling you that is an original Xbox. So the very first Xbox game. So it's a backwards compatible game. If we go into American Nightmare, we can see that's a 360 game. Go into Manage Add-ons on that one. And it says console type Xbox 360. So that will run off an external hard drive. And then we can go to, let me see, we got 360 and then we want an Xbox One game. Have we got an Xbox One game on here? Well, Halo Master Chief, I think, was Xbox One. It may have been enhanced already. Well, it's an enhanced game. If we go to File Info, it says type Xbox One Gen 9 aware. So that means that it will run off a USB drive as well. So, and then if we look at Forza Horizon 4, this is where it gets interesting. Go down to File Info, and where it says console type, it says Xbox Gen 9. Now, if it just says Xbox Gen 9 and not Gen 9 aware, you know that that won't run from a USB drive, and you can only run it from internal or from the Seagate proprietary drives that, as I say, plug into the back of your Xbox. So we've got the different types. We've got Xbox Original, console type Xbox 360, console type Xbox One, console type Gen 9 aware, and console type Xbox Gen 9. And it's the Gen 9 ones that will only run from the internal or from the Seagate drives. So, as I say, you can check that if the game's already installed. But what do you do if a game isn't installed? How do you check to see if those games will install to a USB drive? Well, there's no real way of just going through and looking at a game and telling. But there is a way that you can set it up so that it'll tell you automatically. And it's this. If we go into settings, there's settings already there. And we go into storage devices. If you look here, internal storage is set as capture location, but you've got the option install here by default. Now, normally it would be set as the internal drive would be installed here by default. So that would be your default install location. If you look down here, though, under external, it says install here by default. So I've actually set it to install to the external drive. And that's my USB drive. So if you set your USB drive as your default location to install games, whenever you go to install a game, it will either install it or it will tell you that it can't be installed. So let me just go back to my games and apps, see all, and I'm going to go down to groups. And here again, this optimized games that run from USB. So Xbox X and S optimized games that run from USB. Now these are all the games that I've actually gone through and tested to see if they will install on the USB drive and run from the USB drive, because you can actually install all the games to a USB drive, but most of them will not run. So kind of defeats the object, although that can be advantageous if you've got slow internet, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, for instance, if I go to Ori and the Will of the Wisps and I press on A, we can see it's a XS next to it at the bottom there on the left-hand side, which means it's in an enhanced game. If I press on A, it gives me the option to install. If I press on install, it will begin the installation process. And you can see that. Now, if I hit the select button now, we can go and have a look at this. Manage game and add-ons. I'm just going to do this quickly. File info. You'll see under console type, it says Xbox One. So it's not even a Gen 9 aware game. It says it's an Xbox One game. So that will install and play from USB. So I'm just going to go home. I'm going to stop the install on that. Cancel all. Clear queue. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my games and apps again. And I'm going to go to full library. And let's go to Game Pass. And filter by all console types. Let's go to optimized for Xbox Series X and S to make it easier to find. And then ready to install. So these are all games that are ready to install. And let's find one that is a newer, let's see, Back 4 Blood. So let's select Back 4 Blood. If I press A to select Back 4 Blood and then press install, and wait, and here we go. This is the message you'll get. It says newer games need faster storage. You can still install Back 4 Blood on external, but to play it, you'll need to move the game to the console's internal storage or a storage expansion card. So, yeah, that is the message you will always get. And as I say, you can install it to the USB drive. And if you've got slow internet, that could be quite handy. You can install it to the USB drive, and then when you want to play it, you could move it to the internal drive. Or you can choose to install it here now. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But if we go back to games and apps and full library, and what am I looking for? No, I'm looking for groups. And we go down here again. I spent hours yesterday going through my list of games and the list that was put on Reddit and checking to see which games would work. And the only ones that I could find that would work so far, and mostly they were games on Game Pass, because, you know, there's a huge library of games that are available through the store. So I mainly concentrated on Game Pass games, but there are a few that you can buy as well on here. Like, I mean, you know, you can buy all of these, but there will be others. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is the list of games I played, and it's what, 5, 10, 15, 20 games. So I've only managed to find 20 games that will install to USB and run from USB. So as I said before, it's a vanishingly small list, and it's not going to get much bigger. So yeah, some games will run and most won't, sorry to say. But it's still useful to keep a USB drive around, because there's an enormous number of original Xbox 360 games, Xbox One games, and this handful of Gen 9 aware games that will run from USB. There are also some interesting curiosities, though. For instance, a game like Quake, which is a really old game. If we go into, let me go home, and we go to Quake. Quake here is installed. But if you look at Quake, if I hit the 3 lines, the select button, and we go to Manage Game and Add-ons, and I go to File Info under Quake, if you look under console type, it says Xbox Gen 9. What that means is, as I said before, that Quake is considered to be a Xbox Series X and S game, even though it's a really old game that's been remastered. So you're not going to be able to run that off USB, which I find really odd, because I can't see any reason why it shouldn't run off USB. But there you are. And I'm sure there's a load of other anomalies out there like that as well. But yeah, for now, I mean, that's pretty much it. There is let me see, I've got a list of games that I made. There's a list here of games. And let me see, did I bring up the list myself? Yeah, well, let me see, let's bring this up bigger so I can read it. Right, so if we look here, as I say, I've listed games that run off USB storage, games that are on Game Pass. There's some notes here. And I went through and I looked, and there's a few here that are, like I said before, Jedi Fallen Order, it stopped working and now requires internal or SD to install and run. And then you've got The Division, which I haven't been able to check, and Warhammer Vermintide 2, which I was unable to check. So, and then I mentioned before Rocket League, that one, that won't run from USB storage, whereas it did in the past. So yeah, for now though, if you look at this list, this will give you a rough idea of the ones that I found that were available. And hopefully that's some use to you. But as I say, set your USB drive as your default install location and you should be fine if you want to do this. Otherwise, get your wallet out and buy one of those Seagate drives, because that's the only real way that you're going to be able to get a load of Xbox Series X and S enhanced games on your Xbox. And even then, you're going to run out of space pretty fast unless you've got a bottomless pit of money and you can buy the 2 terabyte drive. But yeah, anyway, hope that's of use to you. If it is, let me know in the comments, and come in the comments and have a chat. And if there's any games that you found that work, you know, to run from USB, let me know about that in the comments. And if you've checked out The Division, or Division 2, sorry, and Warhammer Vermintide 2, let me know, because I've not been able to check those, because Although Vermintide 2 was on Game Pass for a while, it is no longer, so I was unable to check it. But anyway, look, that's me done. I think I covered all the bases there. As I say, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'm going to go and finish my cup of tea because I've already got one next to me here, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.